Velkommen alle sammen. Just got back to the US after being back home in Norway, so getting back to my usual academic style videos, but it's time to talk a little smack first. Who was the real Jarl Håkon? This one in the new Viking series? Oh no. I'm talking about the real Jarl Håkon, not the foreign-born Håkon cast in Vikings, the real Håkon who defended Norway from every single advance from foreign powers. Not the peaceful Håkon in the show that strives for coexistence and cut the gut for everyone, which was not even a real city. The real Håkon would rather die than see a foreign religion of Christianity enter Norway. Not the old woman Håkon, but the real Håkon who gained control of Norway at a very young age and lived the rockstar epic life. Not the woke, politically correct Netflix version of Håkon. No, the real Håkon was actually the most politically incorrect Viking, and he raided everywhere, talked all the trash, and he was the best, slanderer or trash talker in Norway's history, and he banged all the most powerful chieftains' daughters, and he pissed the whole country off. The real Håkon was one of the most loved men to ever come to power in Norway, but by the end of his life he ended up being the most hated because of his toxic masculinity. But if any of you watching are pagan and follow our old religion, Håkon is by far our greatest hero and the one that did the most for our belief. So in this video I'm going over his whole story so we can just counteract the absolute slander to our people that the new Viking series is spreading. So first, I maybe have to apologize a little bit. I have been talking a lot of shit for the past 3 months, ever since I found out this actress, Caroline Henderson, was playing Jarl Håkon. I watched the show, and as an actress, she did a pretty good job, and she, sadly enough, she was the one that actually portrays the real, what a Viking leader would have actually been, All these other guys in the show, they're a bunch of emotional, angry, bunch of pussies, really. This might be what a leader is today in our modern day and age, but look at any tribal culture around the world, look at ancient times, look at the Viking age. The leader and the one that people really respect, the real alpha, the chieftain, is not the one getting all angry and beating his chest and displaying these childlike temper tantrums like that. No, the leader of any tribal society or primitive culture is the most stoic, the most calm, the one that is really the most dangerous but doesn't show the need to, flush his tail feathers or whatever the hell else you call it. And this kind of leadership the show has actually been missing since last season's when Ragnar died. Ragnar was just the epitome of what a Norse leader would have been. Stoic, calm, collected. And this is the one who people would follow. So Caroline Henderson, the actress who plays Jarl Håkon, actually did a pretty good job at this, and I don't think people should be mad at her. She probably didn't want this role either. She probably auditioned for some other role, but they gave it to her. So don't be mad at her, or be mad at Michael Hurst, or be mad at the casters or something like that for getting her this shitty role. But at the same time, she should know that she's going to get some hate. This is our greatest hero, just like if I was cast into a samurai movie and was cast as Musashi, the greatest samurai hero, I'm going to expect to get some backlash, and that just comes with the territory. So that's just a little disclaimer there, and summing up what I've spoken about over the past 3 months. But anyway, on to the history of Jarl Håkon. So the story of Håkon as a defender of Norway and our beliefs actually starts before he was even born. A few decades before, the really greatest king that Scandinavia ever had came into power, and his name was also Håkon. Håkon the Good, and he was a son of the famous Harald Fairhair. Now, Jarl Håkon's father was named Sigurd, and he was a powerful chieftain of Trondheim, and he was a great friend of King Håkon. Very important that people know this. A king did not rule Norway until you befriended the people of Trondheim. Trondheim is actually a city today, but back then it was a large area and population of some of the best warriors that the world has ever seen. I did a video on that you can check out, but basically, yeah, the strongest place in Norway was Trondheim, and you needed the support of Trondheim if you were to rule Norway. And King Håkon was actually loved there. And it was a beautiful, peaceful time in Norway for the most part until King Håkon's nephews, the sons of Erik Bloodaxe, came around. When Håkon died, they basically took over control of Norway, and they were really sneaky with Jarl Håkon's father, Sigurd. They didn't like each other that much, but they acted friendly because of political reasons. But one day, the sons of Erik Bloodaxe and their men assassinated Sigurd by burning him in his hall while he slept. So from that moment on, his son, the young Håkon the Jarl, would have been on a mission to avenge his father. And he was pretty young. We don't have exact dates here, but he was probably just a teenager when he took over the earldom of his father. This brings us to around, you know, the mid 900s somewhere. Now, the TV show is set in the early 1000s, so the dates are a little off in this respect. If this was the real Håkon and it lined up with the dates, he would have been like 80 years old or something like that by the time that these events were happening in the show. So just remember that. So anyway, what followed after that was a bit of a sneaky time in Norway. Håkon and the sons of Erik Bloodaxe avoided each other in open combat, just because they knew they were both, it was a bit risky to fight one another, but what they did was smaller raids on each other's territories, and always, of course, kind of spying on each other to see when they might be able to catch the other off guard. Eventually, Håkon made his way to Denmark, and he befriended the famous Harald Bluetooth there. And it was with this Danish king's help that Håkon was able to wage war on the sons of Erik Bloodaxe, and it was a series of great hard battles, but Håkon came out victorious, so he was basically in charge of all Norway while he was just in his 20s. Officially, the Danish king Harald Bluetooth ruled over Norway with Håkon as the de facto ruler, and that was all fine because they were great friends, and we in Norway, we liked Harald Bluetooth, and I made a video about this before saying how Norwegians were the most powerful of the Viking Age, but the Danes actually ruled over Norway among many other places in the Viking Age. Now, it wasn't because they conquered us. They tried many, many times, but every Danish invasion of Norway pretty much failed. The Danes ruled over Norway only when the Norwegians wanted them to. Now, before any Danes get pissed off, hold that thought because it's for a very good reason. Denmark has in the Viking Age and has always produced better leaders in general over the ages. Really great people. I'm Norwegian, but I have to admit, just being honest, most Norwegian kings throughout the ages and leaders all the way up until today have been tyrannical, corrupt, treacherous people who just love to make the lives of the Norwegian people miserable. Danish leaders throughout history, there have been some bad ones, but most of them have been much better than the Norwegian leaders. They've done a great job at uniting a country while also making sure that people have their freedom. This is the exact same thing that's happening today, actually. Denmark is a much more free place and has better leaders than in Norway. So yeah, just like many other times in the Viking Age, the Danish king Harald ruled over Norway with the support of its most powerful chieftain. This all came to a halt one day. After years of peace, Denmark and Harald Bluetooth were about to be invaded by the Holy Roman Empire, and he called to Norway for Håkon the Jarl's help. Now, sources, they say some different things about what went on in these events. Some say that Harald Bluetooth was converted to Christianity willingly, and he became friends with the Saxon Roman Emperor Otto. The way I'm telling the story in this particular example is based on the Norse sources. In my opinion, these seem a bit more reliable according to the rest of the events that happened in the following years around this time. But it's up to you, whatever you want to believe. But the Norse sources is what I go, and even the Norse sources don't always agree. If we read Heimskringla or any of the sagas, they have quite a positive depiction of Håkon the Jarl, but if you read read a couple of the other sources, there's a lot stronger Christian bias in those, so they actually call him Hákon the Bad. So whatever, believe whatever you want. I'm just telling you which sources I use. So anyway, Hákon comes down to Denmark to help, and this was a massive battle at a place called Danavirki. Today it's in modern day Germany, but back then it was a part of Denmark. I did a full video on this before, so I'm just summarizing this now, but basically the Danes and Norwegians split up as the Holy Roman Empire invaded. The Emperor Otto decided to attack the Norwegians because they were the smaller force there. Little did they know that you do not fuck with the Norwegians and Håkon the Jarl. Massively outnumbered, the Norwegians sent Otto's forces running back, fleeing. Guys, this was the Holy Roman Empire. Every Christian force in the north of Europe was falling upon a couple thousand Norwegians, and the Norwegians whooped their asses because we still had the old gods on our side. So Håkon says, well done, men. Harald Bluetooth, thanks for nothing, but it was great to be of service. Gonna head back home now. Call us next time you need help. Problem was, just a few days later, Otto and the Roman Empire invaded Denmark again at a place called Møre, and without the Norwegians there, the Danes lost the battle. Harald Bluetooth sent for help to Jarl Håkon when they were coming, again because he was still in Denmark waiting for a strong wind to sail back to Norway, and in just a day or two that it took Håkon to get there, the Danes had surrendered and all been baptized and accepted Christianity, and Håkon gets there. He was a devout pagan and he gets there in disgust. Just, what the fuck? Think of Floki's face when Ragnar got baptized in the old series of Vikings. And he was just so mad, and that was the worst thing that Harald Bluetooth could have done. The problem was Håkon and the Norwegians now were trapped in between the whole Holy Roman forces and the Danish forces who had just accepted their new Lord and Savior, okay? So they were forcing Håkon now and the Norwegians to get baptized. And also they were going to send with them a big group of priests back to Norway to help Christianize the whole country. Håkon had no choice but to accept when he was there, but as soon as he got clear, he kicks the priests off the ship and he goes down to Sweden, and he had the biggest pagan sacrifice ever there. Like, come on, Sweden, well, you didn't do shit to help us down there in the battle, but Denmark has forsaken us now, and it's just us two pagan brothers now. Let's do this thing. And after that, Håkon goes on the biggest of raiding sprees. He raids everywhere. Every Christian place in the north of Europe he raided. Denmark, Saxony, Frisia, Francia, England. He even sent some of his men to the east of Europe to help an old friend, Prince Vladimir the Great, take back Novgorod and Kiev. And anywhere Håkon or his men traveled, they told tales and sang songs about how cowardly Harald Bluetooth had behaved. And we even have a law that was recorded in Iceland that every citizen had to compose a flattering-style poem about Harald Bluetooth. Those are like the old Norse rap battles. Imagine. A whole country is required by law to make a diss track about you. So Harald Bluetooth was now the laughingstock of all Northern Europe, and of course he was pissed off at this, but he knew he was not strong enough to take on Norway, so he summons a massive army with the help of the Saxons and the Roman Emperor, and even a massive army of Jomsvikings, and these were basically the Viking special forces, hired mercenaries, and they were all descended on the Norwegians at the Battle of Hjörungavåg, my number 2 favorite battle of the whole Viking Age. So Håkon and the Norwegians here were greatly outnumbered, and it was a very hard battle, but due to the bravery of the Norwegians and the battle tactics of Håkon and his right-hand man, Erik the Jarl, the Norwegians won. After this battle is actually where a famous scene in Vikings came from that you see here. When Håkon and Erik were executing the remaining Danes and Jomsvikings, they were chopping their heads off with axes. One man who had beautiful hair said, "Okay, you can chop my head off with the axe, but can you hold my hair away so it makes a clean cut?" And one of the Norwegians does this, and he pulls his hair away, and the other guy gets his hands chopped off. Håkon and Erik found this pretty funny, and they offered this Danish guy peace. But they executed most of the others, but they let some of them go, and that was it. At this time, it was such a beautiful point in Norway. Maybe one of the most powerful times in the whole history of Norway. Nobody could touch the Norwegians at this time. The Norwegians had fought all the biggest armies in the north and even some in the east of Europe, and they won every battle because of the great Håkon. Nobody could touch him. Every single Christian force in Europe wanted to. They wanted to have a crusade on Norway and convert them. They wanted to convert Sweden and Finland too, and the Sami areas, of course, but Norway stood in their way, and Norway was undefeatable. Paganism and the Scandinavian way of life was there to stay. However, we had a problem. Håkon liked the ladies. He was untouchable, a young man in his prime. He was about... in my last video, I have to correct that. I thought that Håkon had died by the time he was 30, but he actually lived to almost 50. So I did get that mistake in my last video, but at this time, after he had just fought off everyone, become the hero, he was in his mid-30s, somewhere around there. He had fought off every invasion, he was a hero and loved, and he was in the prime of his life. Of course, there are going to be some ladies who want the D. Well, Håkon decides, instead of just picking one to marry, you know, he didn't want to disappoint all the others and break the hearts of the other ladies in Norway, so he decides to bang all of them. Problem was, in the Viking Age, again, this is contrary to popular belief and what the TV show suggests. The truth is that skanky, promiscuous behavior among women was not accepted in society. Premarital sex was very rare, and a high-class lady would never let a guy between her legs unless they were married. And of course, the father had to approve for any of this to happen. So what Håkon did, he sent for all the most beautiful women in Norway. He could bang slaves. Anybody could bang slaves or peasant women. Same thing as today. Anyone can bang a low-class girl with no honor. But a high-quality lady doesn't just open her legs for anyone. So Håkon got the high-quality girls by sending messengers to their fathers saying, hey, I want to speak to your daughter about a marriage. Send her here, send her here. And then the fathers send their beautiful daughters to stay with Håkon and speak about a marriage. He bangs them for a couple weeks, sends them home. No marriage. Now, I definitely do not approve of this behavior, but all the guys have to admit we kind of want to be like Håkon, even though they may not admit it while their woman is around. Matter of fact, if my girlfriend sees this, she's gonna be pissed, so if you guys could share and like the video, maybe this will make some ad revenue and I'll take her out to a nice dinner, so there you go. But make no mistake, Håkon was a great and honorable man and a warrior and loved by everyone, but his treatment of women was not very honorable at all, and he had a lot of kids that he probably didn't take very well care of either. I don't approve of those bad things about him. I'm just telling it in a funny way so you guys can see the irony of who he really was as opposed to who this worthless TV show cast him as a character. So anyway, the country of Norway started to hate him. Not the whole country, basically, but only the most powerful chieftains, whose daughters he tooted and booted, basically, but they were not quite strong enough to face Håkon alone. This is the time where Olav Tryggvason enters, the most evil bastard of a king Norway ever had. But the Norwegians didn't know this yet. They didn't know what Olav Tryggvason was really like. As soon as he would become king, he would torture and kill anyone who didn't want to become Christian and just go on a rampage. But when he first showed up in Norway, he was a good guy, tall, good-looking, nice, a descendant of the great Harald Fairhair, and he was offering a solution to get rid of Håkon the Jarl. And it was him who basically stirred up the pot and made the Norwegians quarrel amongst each other, and they got them to remove Håkon from power, and it eventually led to Håkon the Jarl getting cowardly assassinated by his longtime friend Tormod, who decapitated Håkon while he wasn't looking, and Tormod basically brought Håkon's head to town thinking that he was going to get a reward, but then they cut Tormod's head off too for betraying his lord, and they both put their heads on sticks. And that is the end of the story of Jarl Håkon. What came next was 5 years of the most horrible time in the history of Norway, with Olav Tryggvason using treachery, lies, corruption, and everything bad to bring hell on the people of Norway and take away every little freedom that the people had in their lives. Does all this sound familiar at all? Håkon the Jarl, who was a great leader. He saved the country's ass many times and made it a beautiful society and a strong society. But Håkon was a bit of an asshole, and he pissed off some powerful people, and he gets the general country emotional. What happens next? A new face comes in, Olav Tryggvason, who uses people's emotions against Håkon and promises something better. After that, after they get rid of Håkon, they find out pretty quickly that this new leader, Olav, is the worst thing that ever happened to the country, and they made a mistake, but it was too late once that was done. Guys, this channel is usually just about Norse spirituality and magic and religion. The only reason I make general history videos like this is so that we can learn from them and not make the same mistakes as humans did before in history. I'm not even going to go into it today because you all know, and I'm not even just speaking about one country today because this exact same thing is happening many different places in the world. We're just too stupid to learn from history, unfortunately, but I hope this video can get some people thinking, and if not, I at least hope it was an entertaining story. So that's it. Now you know who the real Jarl Håkon is, as opposed to the Netflix interpretation. So that's all I have to say for today. Vi ses nästa gång.